Good morning. Thank you all for coming today. As you know, I'm announcing today that I will not be running for re-election as the Denver District Attorney in 2024, which is when the next election is. I was honored and humbled in 2016 and 2020 when the citizens of this great city elected me to be the first female Denver District Attorney. I have had and continue to have an amazing, stimulating, challenging time as Denver's District Attorney. I believe the office is in great shape with almost 300 committed, dedicated employees working every day to keep our city safe, prosecute criminal behavior, and provide support and comfort to thousands of crime victims. I'm very proud of this office and the incredible and important work that we do every day. The time has come, or is coming in 2025, however, for me to turn over the reins and move to the next chapter of my life. The primary reasons for my decision are, number one, as I mentioned, I believe the office is in great shape, excellent shape, and is thriving. We are running smoothly, continuing to improve, and I feel that I can leave in 2025 with the office in a great place and with the people of Denver in good hands with our employees. Number two, I have accomplished the goals that I discussed when I was campaigning for this position, as well as some we've developed over the years since I've been here. I believe that the changes that I made came with support and the work in our office, and they're in place now and have improved the office and broadened our view of criminal justice. I have every expectation they will continue under a new administration. You can see the specifics of the accomplishments in the press release. If you don't have a copy, please let Mauro know, or they're back there on the chair. But I'm just going to outline a few of them now. So they range from starting separate juvenile human trafficking, elder at risk, behavioral health, and conviction review units to establishing successful and productive adult diversion and restorative justice programs. They also include addressing the pressing gun issues through grand jury indictments of leaders of groups that are terrorizing our city, as well as our handgun intervention program, which addresses the need that young people feel to carry firearms in our city. Our domestic violence firearms relinquishment program is the only one in the state. Reducing mass incarceration will continue to be a goal, and we have been addressing it through the alternatives that we've developed to alternatives to incarceration that we've developed in our office and have expanded. Also, we have internal education programs about the impact of race on the criminal justice system and our part as members of law enforcement in that impact. Our warrant and marijuana forgiveness programs are providing second chances to people throughout the city. We are now more transparent than ever with our accessible data dashboard, our community meetings, and our officer-involved shooting meetings. We have also made several internal improvements, including increasing salaries throughout the office to be more competitive and equitable, starting paid paternity and maternity leave, establishing performance reviews, and starting a peer support program. And also we have focused on language justice with our interpreter who helps us communicate with our communities that speak Spanish. We have learned a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we have trained ourselves to help us recognize and eliminate racism and sexism in our work. And of course, our facility dog, Bodie, who helps young victims feel more secure about telling their stories in court and provides joy to our own employees who are exposed to significant trauma. We are in court every day, handling thousands of criminal cases and providing support and comfort to victims of crime. I've had a long career in public service, and I'm proud of the work that I've done over the years, especially the last, several years in this office. where where my career actually started. I am not, excuse me, I am not done though. There is always more to be done, and I'm eager to keep up this important work. I look forward to continuing to work over the next year and a half for this office and seeking justice and public safety for our community. My goals for the office for the future are to focus on issues that continue to plague our community. Excuse me a minute. Which include the ongoing, heartbreaking amount of juvenile violence in our city, the continued increase in fentanyl use and the many repercussions of that, the shocking increase in the use and prevalence of guns in our neighborhoods and businesses. So we have many challenges left in criminal justice. And I believe this office strikes the right balance between aggressively prosecuting criminal cases and providing alternative opportunities to the traditional system in appropriate cases. We are very fortunate in Denver that our criminal justice agencies work well together, and we are open to change and improvement. And we have leaders in place in our city, even a new leader, who want to collaborate and work on solutions together. It has been an honor and a privilege to hold this position, and I look forward to continuing our work together over the next year and a half. So I'm open for questions, if you have any.
One thing I'd love to hear about, when you first took office, one of the big conversations was around police accountability.
Yes.
And I'm curious what you see as your track record on that, and if you could maybe talk about some examples of holding law enforcement accountable for excessive force, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. So thank you for raising that. That was one of the things we talked about a lot in the campaign. So I have taken it upon myself and members of my office to really evaluate carefully allegations of police misconduct. We have filed several cases of assault against police officers. One was against a sheriff, actually, one against a police officer that went to trial. Both of those officers were acquitted, despite, I think, excellent work by our office. We've also charged other assault cases where officers have pled and have left the force. We've charged officers with fraud in terms of how they fill out their timesheets and the work that they do. We go over once a week and meet with the Internal Affairs Bureau at the Denver Police Department to review cases where there might be criminal conduct. And if we believe there is criminal conduct, we have a review in our office of that activity and make a decision about whether to file. The other thing that I've started that I think has been really helpful is when there is a shooting where there is someone killed, I meet with the family of the person that is deceased to explain to them what the process is. And then if I am not filing criminal charges, we now meet with the family before the decision is issued and go through it with them so that they understand the reasons for my decisions. And then once a letter is issued, we have a follow-up community meeting where people can ask questions about why the decision was made, what happened. And so I think part of the role of the DA is being transparent about why I'm not filing a criminal case. And to date, I believe that that's been pretty successful in explaining to families and the community why the decisions are being made. And I just remembered as well, I'm sure you know, we did file, the grand jury indicted a police officer recently for assault from the incidents that took place in lower downtown. So if we believe that we can file a case that can be proved beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury, we file it. If we can't, we don't. That's completely optional. That was a choice that I made, and it was something I promised to do during my campaign.
Another question for you. I'm curious, over the course of your tenure here, if you have a sense that the cases that were being referred to you that specifically involved unhoused residents, if those were have been over time used appropriately, had enough merit, or have you seen yourself throwing some of those cases out, and has that changed over the time of your tenure?
That's an interesting question. I don't think that things have changed particularly over my time. I mean, what we do is the police bring us a case. We look at whether or not we have enough evidence that we can prove the case in court beyond a reasonable doubt. If we do, we file. If we don't, we don't. I think that often the cases that are that the police bring against the unhoused are presented to the city attorney's office because many of them are lower level crimes. But I have to say that we have prosecuted, unfortunately, several murder and assault cases that have occurred among the homeless population. And some of them have been pretty awful and pretty brutal. So in that sense, I think there are more homeless people in Denver, and so there are more crimes being committed among the homeless. But anytime there's a state level crime, we will prosecute those, and we have prosecuted several pretty violent cases involving homeless people as victims and perpetrators. Yes.
Was there, you've had a lot of change, we've had a lot of change in the city around you with a new police chief and now a new mayor. Did that factor in at all with your timing and looking ahead about what another term would look like?
Actually, no. I'm pretty excited about a new mayor. I think it's going to be a good time for the city, and I actually look forward to working with the mayor over the next year and a half. So I think we have a lot of new energy and a lot of new ideas. If anything, it would have made me want to stay more. And I have a great deal of respect for the police chief. I am hoping that he will stay on as police chief. I think he's doing a very good job. We have a good relationship. And I think he has some forward-thinking ideas as well about how he wants to run the police department. So, no, if anything, I think, but it's also a good time because things are steady and stable, I think, in the city. I mean, obviously we have a new mayor, a new city council, but I feel like the city has a lot of energy. I feel like there's a lot of ideas, and I'll be part of that for the next year and a half. So I'm really looking forward to that. We have a lot of issues, but I really do think our criminal justice agencies work well in Denver by and large. Obviously we have some disagreements, but we work well together, and I'm including in that the courts, the probation department, the pretrial services folks, the parole. Parole is really a state agency, but all of our specialty courts, our relationships with the county court and their specialty courts and the district courts, specialty courts, is very encouraging. Just had a meeting this morning with my mental health advisory committee about the competency diversion programs that are going on, trying to get people who have mental health issues out of the criminal justice system. And we are very much a part of that. And I think if the citizens really knew all the things that are going on in Denver to address some of these issues of the crossover of mental health and criminal justice, they would be pretty impressed. So there's a lot of good things going on. So it's, I feel like it's a good time to, finish out my term and be able to turn things over to someone in good shape.
You said you will work, after you leave, you still want to work and do something, you said, right?
Well, I didn't say I wanted to work. I do want to do something, yes. Are you asking? I can tell you a few ideas.
If you felt you wanted to say anything, but it's a year and a half away, I didn't know if you
Yeah.
had any idea.
No, so that's part of it is that, I've been in public service a long time. I love it. I feel feel like I've been pretty successful. But, there are other things that I'm interested in. So, for example, I just climbed my 39th and 40th 14er a couple weeks ago. So I may want to do a few more of those. And I also, I have a passion about animals. Any of you you guys are too young, but if you followed me in the legislature, I was an animal advocate. So I am very interested in maybe working with a group that is working with elephants in Africa to help them not be poached for their tusks. I did a bill about ivory when I was in the legislature. So this is a beautiful state, and I like to bike, I like to hike, I like to ski. I'm still a big skier. So, I have those kinds of interests. But I also may want to be on a board or two and contribute what I might be able to contribute to continuing to look at issues that face the city. I've always been interested in public safety and juveniles and trying to get them on a better path. So we'll see. But it is a year and a half off, so who knows?
I guess I'm curious you have this vantage point now, being in this office for 2 years, and you talk about what is working. I'm curious also what reforms you think maybe still could be implemented that would make the city safer, law enforcement more accountable to the public, all of those things. What are your thoughts on that?
There are definitely more things that we can do. I think in terms of the police, I think much more community involvement. I'd like to see officers walking the beat a little bit more. I know they don't have the staffing right now, but Chief Thomas has started a program called Beyond the Badge, which is he took the latest recruit class out before they get sworn in as officers to meet with community members. He took them into the community, and that's something that he's going to continue. I think his orientation is very much community, and I think that that's going to be very helpful if he can pursue that. Putting the police officers back in the schools, I think has a lot of potential. It could go either way, I guess, but the people that I've talked to that worked with community police officers in the schools felt that it was helpful for the students to have a presence. And if the officers are chosen well, I think it could be a very good thing for helping kids who are struggling and who are feeling threatened and feel like they need to carry guns. It could be a very good thing. Then in terms of other reforms, so I am a big believer in alternatives to the traditional criminal system. And we've started some really good programs. I think our HIM program for drug addicted people is showing some success, but we definitely need to be doing more in terms of drug addiction, how to keep people from getting into drugs in the first place, but then when they are into the addiction, what do we do with them? I think drugs are so much more a part of the criminal system than I even realized, but they're the root of a lot of criminal activity and a lot of, heartbreak for people. So I think we need to focus on fentanyl. I think we need to really look at what do we do there. We've got to be prosecuting aggressively the dealers, but we got to figure out ways to get people out of the system. I also think we could do more with our juveniles. That's another big interest of mine. We should be putting more resources up front with kids starting in elementary school. I mean, I've talked to some of these guys who've gotten out of prison, and they'll tell you it started in elementary school. And it's hard because, a lot of these kids come from backgrounds that are not supportive, and they've been exposed to a lot of trauma at very early ages. So kind of identifying those kids, because if you look at the research, when kids are exposed to trauma over and over and over at young ages, it actually changes their brains. And so it is challenging. You can change them, but it is challenging. But I do think that that's an area where we could be doing more work. And the guns. I mean, you know, there are just too many guns, and we need to do more to get rid of them. And it's hard because, as you know, that's pretty controversial, but, you know, we shouldn't be having 14-year-olds carrying AR-15s, which they are in our city. And they shouldn't be changing guns into automatics with these devices, which we now have made a dangerous weapon. The legislature did, so that's helpful. But, you know, I think if we all work together, we can make progress. But there's a lot to do, and we're doing a lot in this office. The courts are doing a lot. Probation's doing work. So I think we can continue to make progress, but it's challenging. Yeah.
You mentioned you charged two police officers whose cases went to trial and lost both of those. I wonder if there's a theme between the reasons why both those cases were lost, and if that's something that your successor will have to sort of figure out how to deal with.
Well, I think anytime you charge a police officer, you know, you have to think about what that officer was confronted with. And I think that there's always, it's self-defense is generally the argument. And so, you know, I think we just have to look at each case individually. And I think any DA does that. And you make a decision. You think you have enough evidence to prove the case. You go to trial, a jury disagrees, and, you know, that's the way it is. But being a police officer is very difficult. It's a hard job, you know, and so I think people are sensitive to that. And of course, they hire good defense attorneys, so there's that too. But, you know, I watch a lot of body-worn camera videos, primarily with respect to police shootings, and you know, they're confronted with very challenging situations, and they have to make decisions in a matter of seconds, or less than a second. And like I said, there's so many guns in this city, you know, they have to assume often that someone has a gun, or if they make some kind of threatening movement, which may not be related to a gun, but it looks like it is. So, you know, all of that comes out in the course of a trial. And when you're asking a jury to find a police officer guilty of a felony conviction, you know, that's a big ask. So we have to be careful, but we will file them, and we do file them if we think the officer committed a crime. Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I heard your support for the current public safety officials. The Johnson administration has not posted those positions.
No, they haven't.
And appears to not be engaging in a competitive hiring process, or at least is willing to consider that. I'm curious what your thoughts are on not having a competitive hiring process for those positions, even as you support these people. What's lost? What's gained? Yeah,
so there are benefits to having public input into those really high-profile positions. I have not spoken to the mayor about whether he's going to actually open those positions up. I've told him that if he does, I'd like to be involved in it. But so far, I haven't heard anything about it. You may know more than I do. But on the other hand, if you have someone who is doing a good job and you have confidence in, it's really not, I don't think it's appropriate to go through a public process if you're really comfortable with the person that's there, because then you get other people applying and you build up hope, or you build up questions, and you know, there's a whole process then that can get a little bit blown out of proportion if you're pretty sure you want to keep the person, right? And so I can see why, if he's planning to keep Chief Thomas and Armando Saldate and the Sheriff Diggins, I can see why he wouldn't go through that process for them. But I get it. If you really are not sure you want to keep the person, then I would definitely want to do a process. I saw that there has been some discussion about people wanting to have input into that decision.
I think Saldate's position was posted.
Oh, it was?
The sheriff's and police fire.
Okay. See, yeah. So I think it's, you know, he's got to decide if he's comfortable with them I don't think it makes sense to go through a big process. He certainly can still talk to people about what they think of him and how he's of them and how they're doing. But from my perspective, I think they're all doing fine jobs.
Will you be involved in the next race in any way?
Oh, I think it's too early to even talk about that. I mean, the primary is in June, so that is less than a year away. So that's one of the reasons I'm announcing now, because it seems like really early to announce. But the primary is in June, and in Denver, whoever wins the Democratic primary will win. So, I wanted to give people enough time to decide if they want to run and to get involved, to have enough time to raise money and run a campaign. But we don't know yet who's going to be in the campaign, and so it's too early for me to take any position. Okay. Anyone else? Nope. All right. Well, you have me for another year and a half, so you can always ask questions later. All right. Thank you.